Okay, so welcome everyone to the Thursday night portion. Robin and I, we absolutely love our time with you this one time a month, and we so look forward to even just dialoguing with each other. I'm in Michigan, she's in Oklahoma, so we're many states away, but we certainly share a love of the word and a love of Yeshua. And so we get very excited to come and spend time with you once a month. So thank you if you're here live with us for joining us and taking time out of your schedule. And if you're watching it later on a recording, we're grateful that you opted to just take a little bit of time, and hopefully you're just sitting relaxing with us and you'll be able to take away something great. We're really excited because, Robin, what season is this for you in Torah? Are you going through your third cycle?
I think.
Or are you in your fourth? I don't know if you're one in front of me.
No, I think I'm like, so 21, January of 21, and that was partway through, right? So
Yeah,
like two years,
2.5.
2.5.
Okay. All right. So I've been 3. So we're both quite new to this, and we don't know where you are. Those of you who are watching, maybe you've walked in Torah for 15 years and you've been through these cycles over and over again. Maybe this is your first season, but I think one of the things that we probably all have in common is that the Father is so good every year.
Yes.
To just show us something new. The word, it's true when they say the word is living. It breathes on us every week when we open it and we invest time into it. It literally breathes new life into us. And so we are so excited because I texted her late last night. She was in a board meeting and I'm like, oh my gosh, this portion, like the things I'm seeing that I haven't seen the other 2 years. So maybe this will be stuff you've already seen. Maybe it will be new to you. But whatever it is, if you're joining us live, we would love for you to put comments in the chat. We will read as we go through. We don't want to feel like we're just talking at you. We want to experience this time with you. And if you have something great to share, please feel free to do that. So, okay. And I saw that Erica just popped on, and I might, a few minutes in, have her pop on and talk a little bit, because Erica's kind of our new moon specialist in the Rooted Cafe. She does all of our new moon calls, but I texted her earlier and I said, is tonight the first night of Elul? Because I knew it was either last night, the night before, it was coming up this week, but I don't follow it that closely. And it is. So tonight we are entering, well, it depends on your calendar. I won't assume everyone is doing that tonight, but a majority of people sometime this week, depending on your calendar, will enter into the month of Elul. And one of the things I was thinking about in prepping for this portion is that we are truly in this season of reflection, introspection, and it's also a month to seek and offer forgiveness. So basically, when I think of Elul every year, and we know that we're kind of getting close to the fall feast season, where for some of us, maybe 6 weeks out from Yom Kippur, a couple months out from Sukkot. So we know this is a time that we are going to try to get the icky stuff out, which I think is reflected last week in Reah, and this week in Shoftim. We're seeing so much of this as a common theme. And it's just like, so wow. And so we are in this final book of the Torah. We are getting ready to end our Torah cycle for the year. So we're in Devarim or Deuteronomy, and we're partway through that. And I think most of us know this, but just in case you're new, Moses is giving sort of this final oracle or address to this second generation of Israelites who are actually going to be the ones to inherit their lands, because their parents were naughty and they didn't get to go in.
That's right.
And so Shoftim, by definition, we think of judges or judgment, right? Ruling, government, maybe we can kind of put it in that category, which I got so many different things other than that this year, but that's by definition what it means. And if we want to just kind of summarize it a little bit, it's a portion that really focuses on, it's like packed with right living and right principle information. And it also is about cleansing ourselves and preparing for the king who's in the field, which is alone. So I just love how the Father brings all of those together. So before I get into anything else, Robin, do you want to like open with anything? Because I know we're both just so excited.
I love the fact that it's like everything points, right? It points to the next thing. Like it seems like it's disconnected. And then it's like, wait a second. What was last week's Torah portion called? It was right. See what? See, this is my kingdom. I'm giving it to you. Now that you've seen this is my kingdom, let me tell you how to make it work. Let me tell you what the operations are. What are those? Jen, you probably are familiar as an executive director, right? And others as well. Like, what are those SOPs? Standing operation. What are they called?
Standard operating procedures.
There we go. Right? Standard. The Lord's like, these are my SOPs, right? That's what they are, and it's not a bad thing. It's because the world system, we're all as flesh. I mean, everything has a hierarchy, right? That's just kind of a natural fleshly part of us. But the Lord's like, let me give you, my people, how to have proper SOPs to be a reflection. And that's really like what I started seeing pretty quickly. And I was like, wait a second. And I don't want to get too far ahead, but that right there was, see, this is my kingdom. And then now what's next? The Lord doesn't leave us on a cliffhanger, right? Like he's like, I'm going to fill in the blanks for you because I want you to know I love you enough. I want you to know I'm welcoming you in. There's no fear, right? Charlie, we talked about that just a little bit, right? He's not a God of fear. I don't want you to have unreasonable expectations. I don't want you to fear those oppressive ways of the past. This is a whole different thing, and it's supposed to be filled with both justice, but paired with mercy.
So tying it into last week's Torah portion, it's interesting because they flow so incredibly well in this season, which we talked about. And I'm gonna have Erica come on if she's willing. I didn't prep her for this before, but talk a little bit about the seasons. But in Re'eh or Re'ah, however you say it, last week's Torah portion, one of the things that hit me the most, and it's like almost being recycled in this Torah portion, is there's one thing to see, but the Re'ah of the Torah portion was to start seeing things with spiritual eyes. So there was clearly this level of maturity that was happening where your heart was actually being transformed for him, because we know that faith without works is completely dead.
Right.
And that's reiterated. And so for anyone who says you don't need to do anything, it's like, yeah, actually you do, but not for salvation. Right. You do it because you love him and he's asked you to. So if my spouse asks me to do something, and because I love him out of respect and honor, I'm going to do it. Obviously within reason, but I mean, you know what I mean? Like we desire to follow the right ruling that brings order to our home. And we're going to get into the home thing later, but he has created a place for us to dwell. And it's a temporary dwelling for us right now, because we know that this earth is not our long-term home. But we have to have, I feel like I'm going to go all over the place, but we have to have boundaries. Yeah. And we have to have order. And I think everything that he tells us in this portion is have spiritual eyes to see the blessing and the curse, the benefits of having order, and removing things from your life that do not bring honor to my name, because the king is in the field and you're prepping. It's like the 10 virgins. We have to be prepared with the oil. Right. We have to be prepared with the oil. And so this is like him preparing us and reminding us of what the oil is that's in the lamp, are these this righteousness that he has given us,
Yes.
so that we are producing the best possible fruit to bring honor and glory to his name, to draw other people in, so that when the king arrives, we're ready.
We're ready. And you have to have oil to light the lamp.
You have
You
to have
can't,
oil like the
you
lamp.
can't light that lamp without
You can't
oil.
light a
You know?
dry lamp.
Yeah, it won't work.
Mhm.
And so then nobody can see, and you yourself stumble. And so it's got to be there. And
Yeah.
I just love that. And I don't even want to get too far yet, because there's the whole Deuteronomy 18 with like the king is literally in the field. It says, I'm going to send you another prophet. Right. So just kind of as to where we're going is just how this pattern just continues to unfold and gets richer and richer and richer. It's a promise, right? It's the promise of, these are my things. I'm giving them to you because you're my people. I want you to live in my house. And I want everybody to live in my house, but it needs to be peaceful. And if there's not order, we all know how it is when you have all the kids at home and somebody is outside of the boundaries, right? And it creates chaos. That's not shalom, unfortunately. And so he wants, his kingdom is shalom. His kingdom is perfect peace. And so it's essential, right, that we learn how to operate within his order for the benefit of everyone, benefit of myself, for managing my own flesh, and also keeping that, shalom with others. So it blew my mind so quickly. Like it just blew my mind.
Yeah, I think Charlie got off. We have a lot of people who can't get in.
Okay.
I know. Someone else is saying they're getting the same thing. They're getting a meeting is in progress, and it's not Marcia. So I'm wondering if that's happening. I don't think Charlie's here, but I wondered if it's being live streamed also on the portion or just in band, because we could have them go. We could have them go to Facebook.
Oh, have them go to band or Facebook. Charlie said that Marcia was in band, so I'm assuming she.
Oh, Marcia's band. All right, give me 1 second here.
Yeah. So let's see. We see, I just absolutely loved how it's like right there at the end of last week's portion. And we're kind of reiterating on that, but like to dive right into Elul, right? Because Elul, it's like everything else that we've learned along the way throughout the year, is look for the thing that's not there. Look for the thing that isn't mentioned, right? And there's not really a direct mention of Elul in the passage. But yet we end the previous week's portion with Passover, Feast of Weeks, and Tabernacles. And then it just goes right into, now set up judges. And it's like, well, why? And it's because you prepare, right? Elul is all about preparing. The king is in the field. He's checking his harvest. Prepare.
Yep.
Prepare yourself.
We do need to prepare ourselves. Another thing that's very interesting about this portion is we're talking about preparing and thinking about how this week's portion relates to last week's portion. One of the things I really got from last week was thinking about this concept of, and this portion has this in it too, what is idolatry? What is divination and all this witchcraft that they're talking about? And one of the themes that Rebecca and I taught the portion last Friday, and we talked a lot about what does it mean to be a polygamist? And not a polygamist. Okay.
Like,
what?
I was like, yeah, okay.
Not one guy. Theist. There we go.
Polytheist.
She turned her camera on.
Not marriages.
I'm sorry. I was like texting my friend.
So
I just a little bit.
That's
Okay.
so good.
That's kind of funny. We're not talking about polygamy here.
No.
What it means to be a polytheist. There we go. Okay. So what it means to be a polytheist versus like monotheism. And this whole idea of polytheism is this idea that you are trying to maintain control of your own circumstances. You are not submitting and you are not willing, because when you are polytheistic, you literally have a specific issue and you're calling on that particular God to take care of your issues, right?
Mhm.
And so you're doing it for your own, I'm going to say essentially like your own like self benefit, because ultimately that's why you're doing it. You call on the God that can help you in that moment. But to be monotheistic and to focus on one particular God, the living God, and putting all of your faith in his ability to do it all is a more humbling approach. So in this, so sorcery and divination, I think we have to look at as means to independent power that's independent of the Father. It's
Yeah.
like selfish worship. It's actually putting yourself above anything else.
Mm.
So in this, he's telling us in this part, she's like, cut down the Asherim. He talks about, so I was telling you that I was listening to Holisa earlier this week, and I don't have the verse, but actually I think I have it marked, but I don't remember what chapter it's in. But it talks about the green trees, and
Yeah.
to get rid of all of the green trees. And this green, she used a Hebrew word, and I don't know what it is. I would have to go back and look at her Torah portion from last year on this. But she talked about how the root of that word is linked to like your own prosperity or your own self-indulgence. And we have to cut all those things out. So when we look at this Torah portion and we're preparing, and we need to get rid of the divination, we need to get rid of the polytheism, we need to get rid of the independence, thinking that we can control all the things. And that's hard. And I say this all the time on here. For women, it's hard because we do have to control our homes, and we raise our children, and we do the schooling, and we have all these responsibilities. So we have to have order in our house. We cannot have chaos. We have to eliminate all of that. So we are used to being in control. And I know Charlie's got her, Control Freaks Anonymous, which I wish she was on here for this, because I would love for her to hear this part. But just this idea that anything that causes us to put ourselves in a self-righteous, controlling position, to feel that we have the authority to do it ourselves, he's saying you need to get rid of it. Y'all don't have, you have power through me. That's but right. Do not try to work in and of your own self in your own power, because you will fail. And this is wisdom. This is righteousness. This is obeying what he said. We are not wise without Torah. We're just not.
No, that's correct. That's what the Bible tells us. It's
wisdom comes from his righteousness. Okay, Erica, while we're in a little break, are you in a place where you can come in and just give us a 2-minute snippet on Elul?
a beautiful little share there in the chat box.
Sure. Hold on just a second. There we go. Hello. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Good.
Charlie's got us spotlighted, so they may not be able to see you, but we can see you.
Okay. Yeah, everything you've been talking about so far just falls right in line, which I love how our Torah portions fall in line with our new moons, with our month, the Hebrew month. And I'm guessing when the sages put all the connections together with the Hebrew months, they probably looked at the Torah portions that were done that time. So that's how they got it. So when you were talking about like sight and things like that, those are some of our senses that we've gone through. So last month, the month we're in until sunset right now, which some of you may already be there, but that was hearing. And then the last month was sight. And so this month is action. So it's really putting all of our senses, different things that we've gone through together. Since the first month, it's all about now it comes into play, kind of like the rubber meets the road kind of idea. And so, all those things are thoughts, our hearing, what we speak, all of those things that we do, we kind of put together in this month as we're preparing for the 7th month of the holiday, the month of all the holidays. And so that's really with Elul is just such a beauty. And you, at the very beginning, you talked about like getting rid of some stuff. And that's another thing the last 2 months we've talked about, because they were both, the gates had to do with going out to the valleys. So it was a valley gate and a dung gate. So we were getting the refuse out, we were getting the yuck out, taking kind of stock. And we're still in that process, that final process of cleansing. And now we come to the fountain gate. And it's such, like, Elul is my favorite month to talk about. I love all the themes. I just love it. And I love how it all comes together, because you can see the flow of what he's done. And that, that good king who's in the field, who wants to teach us about, he's also the master gardener. We talked about that Tuesday night in class. He's also the master gardener. So he wants to say, hey, look, you've got this financial field over here, and you've got some things you need to take care of. You've got your marriage field over here, and you got some things you need to take care of. You've got your parenting field, you got some things to take care of here, whatever it may be. He lovingly comes in and says, we got to work on these things. And when we go through the 40 days of repentance, teshuvah, we're all in that. So that's kind of Elul in a nutshell that goes right along. And I just, I didn't even really think about reading the portion this week about, having all the king's commandments in there, their instructions. So works perfect for this month.
So can we go there with the king and his commandments? So you're talking about are you talking about what the king can and cannot do?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. Was there anything else you wanted to say before we got into that? Because that is something else I want to talk about, is that.
Yeah,
But
no,
anything
I think that is the Elul in the nutshell, and this portion really kind of flows right into it. So tonight will be a good celebration to begin.
Yeah, I'm so excited that we're doing it on the new moon. It's very exciting to think like we are ushering in this very profound month with this Torah portion.
I love it. It's
just so cool.
Really
okay, so Erica kind of led into, talking about kingship. And this was another thing, Robin, that I don't think I had a chance to share with you this morning, but I love that he, God will sometimes let us do what we need to do just to prove a point that he is sovereign over us.
Yeah,
right?
sometimes it hurts, right?
Sometimes it hurts, but sometimes he's like, all right, you want it bad enough, child? You go ahead. You just try it and we'll see what happens. And we know that Israel wanted a king to lord over them. But even in this parsha, we see that, Adonai chooses to give Israel a king. They're not commanded to have a king. So it's sort of like, this is where I think he's saying, okay, you think a king is better than me, but I'm not going to command that you have one, but I am going to give you one of my choosing. Yeah. And as we learn in this Torah portion, though, the king has to look different. So they so desperately want to be like the nations. Like, that's what they say, give us a king like the nations. But even at that, he did not want them to look like the nations. So their king was going to look different. Yeah. It was the power of the king to see how many horses he could have, to build up his military, to have tons of wives, even foreign wives, to build alliances. Yes. The king, it was okay that worldly king multiplied everything he had. Right. But then we see here in Deuteronomy that he's telling them, listen, your king has to remain set apart. Your king is not to acquire too many horses. Your king shall not acquire too many wives, and certainly not the wife of a foreigner, because you are not to self-glorify. You are not to live in self-sufficiency. There was only one thing that the king was required to do. So these were things he was not to do. But there was one thing that the king was required to do, and that was to write out for himself a copy of the scrolls, read from it all the days of his life, faithfully observe the law, It was to be an integral part of his enthronement. And who is that? Like what?
Right?
That's Yeshua.
It's
I mean,
100% Yeshua.
like, as he gives all the commands for what a king should look like and what a king should be.
Describing
It is
himself.
not about self-glorification.
No.
It is not about building wealth or acquiring things. And it's interesting because I love my Jewish brothers and sisters, but they were looking for a rich man. They were looking for someone who was a king by the world standards. And our king came humbled,
Right.
humiliated.
Yeah.
Like he died such a death. And it was not for his own glory. It was all for the glory of the Father. So this Torah portion gives us the perfect representation of what the Father says a king should look like and what a king should be. And of course, we're the living examples. So we are to take those things. And for us, and this is where you can say prosperity gospel, poop on you. Like it's like,
Yeah.
no, I mean, not that people that walk in righteousness cannot be wealthy, but if we are out there doing everything we can to acquire it for ourselves, independent of him being in the world, sorcery, witchcraft, and everything else to try to gain that authority and power, then we are bringing his name to naught. Then we are breaking that third commandment because our king did not feel the need to do that. And we
Right.
were told the only thing we need is to have the law written on our hearts and to do it daily. That's it.
Yeah.
That's what makes us rich.
That's it. And I love that because that kind of ties into the Haftarah, right? Like,
Go for it, sister.
like I loved in Torah.org, just I love scrolling through there because even their titles point out so much wisdom. Like I'm like, whoa, wait a second. How did you get that title? And but Isaiah
What do you
12.
believe to get that title? What was it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like, what? Wait a second. Isaiah 51, starting in 12, because it's 51:12 through 52:12, and it's like, even I am he who comforts you. Right off the bat, it's me. Right? Yeshua gave up his riches in order to so that he could take on our poverty and he could make us rich. And if I think about that, like, oh, such a high calling, because I mean, he wants us to do what he did, right? And I'm not talking about go sell everything you have and give it to the poor. Not that you shouldn't. just don't go make yourself be in a impoverished situation in order so that you can give to everyone else, because the Lord doesn't want you to be in that situation to where you're now begging, right? But
Yes.
give unbridled, because you know that the one who gives to you is going to refill you, because he already did. But the whole thing where you said, the king is not supposed to do these things, lots of prohibitions, and don't do this, don't do that, and not bad instructions. It's, I don't want you to blaspheme my name. I'm setting you up as a representative, as somebody who's upholding my SOPs, my standing orders. That's it.
Standing operating procedures.
Those.
Yes.
And so, in 52, Isaiah 52, it says, and my name is blasphemed continually every day. Right. And so there's a lot. I don't want to jump right to that negative, but like, it's him who comforts us. He has given us. It's the veil getting thinner. Why can we see this today? And I couldn't see this 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, right? Because the veil is getting thinner, and it's the king is in the field, and that's what this Haftarah is about. He's coming back. He talks to you about the creation narrative, right? He's the one who spread out. He laid the foundations of the earth. And you have feared me continually every day because of the fury of the oppressors, right? And he talks about being captives, but there's this new awake. Why? That I may plant the heavens. I'm looking at Isaiah 51, the end of verse 16, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to actually get started at the beginning of 16. And I put my words in your mouth. I have covered you with the shadow of my hand, that I may plant the heavens, lay the foundations of the earth, and say to Zion, you are my people, right? He wants to plant the eternal in this temporal space and make it infinite.
Yes.
And he wants to use his people to accomplish that purpose.
I have to look up, I think it's Psalm 17:20.
Okay.
Is that the one that says righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne? That's the verse I'm thinking of.
Let me look.
But I was thinking about that verse yesterday. I think it's in the Psalms. Anyway, I think everybody knows it. It's something like that. Righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne.
Yes.
And so when we think about last week's portion of Ra'eh and like, listen, you need spiritual eyes to be able to see this. You just said the veil was getting thinner. And that's what's happening is the spiritual eyes are like, maybe they started with cataracts, but now all of a sudden the cataracts are being pulled back. And all of a sudden the spiritual ability to see things, like we said, oh my gosh, all the stuff in this Torah portion this year is new for us. Like, why didn't we see any of this last year? The veil was thicker, but it continues to get thinner. But as he is setting this foundation for the return of the king who is in the field in the month of Elul, righteousness and justice are my foundation. So when people want to be like, oh, well, the New Testament interprets the Old Testament, I'm like, people, righteousness, the Torah, and justice, the Torah, are the foundation of his kingship. It's the foundation of his very throne. There is nothing that is a more base level than what he is prescribing to us here. Love Yah, love people. You don't get to be polytheistic and determine how you do that and decide how you integrate laws and right ruling and justice. I have laid the foundation, and it's either going to bring you blessing or it's going to bring you curse. But you know what? You pick. You pick. You want a king?
Right.
I'm going to give you a king, but it's going to be the king of my choice. And I'm setting my king up for righteous standards. He will not be after horses, you know. He's not going to be after money and material things. He is not going to put himself above other people. He is not going to elevate himself like earthly kings do. He is going to come and he is going to be humbled, and every word that comes out of his mouth is going to be the foundation of my throne.
Exactly.
I mean, it's so beautiful. I love this Haftarah. And as we talked about, we're getting ready to head into the fall feast season. And so we've entered into this month of Elul. And if you can, will you talk a little bit about, Gail, do you feel comfortable like with what you did today? Because I don't know if I can remember it well enough, or I'm just saying the parts about like, we're in a season. So, I'll give the basic and you add on to it. So Robin and I listened to Gail Heaton's Haftarah teaching for this. I listened to it a couple days ago and I texted Robin. I'm like, you need to listen. It's so good. But she was, and I had never heard this before, that before Rosh Hashanah, there's 7 Haftarahs that are related to being consoled, being comforted, basically repenting because you are trying to cleanse yourself and prepare for the king. So the 10 virgins, you are doing whatever it takes to get your oil ready and to be dressed, because I can't remember if it's in the Haftarah or if it's in the portion where it says you are to get dressed. And we know when we talk about putting clothes on, a lot of it's character, right? Clothes, garments represent character in Hebraic thought. Yes. And so like you are to get your character right because the king is in the field. These other people are paying attention to what you're doing.
That's right.
So you need to do it right. But this chapter in Isaiah is very beautifully like, listen, people, get your stuff together. I am tired of you rebelling against me. Clean up your house. The king is in the field. Now we know that these times are rehearsal.
Yes.
But one of these years, it's not going to be a rehearsal.
Yeah, that's right.
Probably in our lifetime, it's not going to be a rehearsal.
I know, mind blown. Yeah, probably. Right? Yes.
So we're preparing, but how many of you wait until Yom Kippur to be like, oh, okay, today, now I just got to sit down and do everything. Ladies, don't do that. To prepare for Yom Kippur, you're doing it now. you get a notebook and you start writing down every time you think of things that need to be scrapped out of your life. You think about things that keep a separation between you and the Holy One. You think about ways in which you've wronged your brother. Where do you need forgiveness? What are character traits that you are not doing well in? Is your tongue an issue? Do you struggle with lying? Do you struggle with spending? Do you struggle in your marriage because you can't be kind to your spouse? Are you harsh with your children? Like, all of these things, like, we are to be, this is the month of Elul, we are to be introspective right now and be preparing, because again, one of these days, he's really going to be in the field and he's going to come calling for his bride. And we don't want the door to be shut.
Right.
Every year we have an opportunity to practice and rehearse this, but now is the time to start.
Today is the
Not
day
on
of
Yom
salvation,
Kippur, now.
right? Today is the day of salvation. So as you go through, from my experience, like what, as you enter into the annual cycle, right? The annual reading cycle. I shared with our fellowship group last Shabbat, you know, because people were asking, what do I do to prepare for Elul? And I'm like, well, here's the thing. Elul is all about teshuvah. Teshuvah is all about repentance, making that turn. If depending on where you are in your walk, if you don't understand that the Torah is what you return to, it's going to be a little hard to make full teshuvah. Maybe you make 20-degree teshuvah. I don't know. I've been there in my past, right? Because it's like, I know I need to quit this and I need to maybe quit this, but it was like, woo, long journey. Big base of the mountain, okay? Big base, long journey. But once you understand that teshuvah is all about returning to the Torah, that the haftarah is all about, not only is it the Torah, but it's returning to the land, understanding that you are Zion, understanding that who you are. Teshuvah then becomes lifestyle, month to month, feast to feast, Shabbat to Shabbat. And so,
and that is it, is that I love that you said it's a life lesson, right?
yes,
we don't just arrive. Teshuvah is not a one-time act. We will be in a state of teshuvah. And it's funny because I actually listened to something that said, what was it? You should only have to repent once and then you should turn, which there is a truth to that, but we're human. So we may be like legitimately like, Father, I am so sorry, man, I just lost my temper. I don't want to do that anymore. Please fill me with your Ruach HaKodesh and allow me to be in a place where I no longer anger like that. But we're human and we could fail. And we could be like, oh, I got mad again. I can't believe it. So it's not always intentional because it's a lifelong process. A Christianese term, it's sanctification.
It's
right?
sanctification. Yeah, you're not gonna, arrive anytime in this flesh, doggone it. But you will get further along, right? You will learn what Moses learned. What did he say? He said, I can no longer go out and come in before you. I can't do it anymore. My body's worn out, right? I mean, he wasn't worn out physically. His eyes were good. His strength was good, but he was like, I can no longer do that. And that is everything. And that is what we learn to do through going through the annual cycle. That is what we learn to do. So if you're in Elul, it is good to be introspective. It is good to go, because sometimes I'll tell you, one of the things that got me was, have you made a promise and you haven't kept it? Did you make a vow and you didn't keep it? And I think about maybe promises or commitments that I've made to my brothers or my sisters or anybody anywhere. And I'm like, did I fulfill that? Did I make sure that I did what I said? Did I keep my word? And sometimes, in all honesty, I mean, it's like, oh, no, I got busy. And I kind of let it go. And I kind of just forgot about it and hope they did too. You know what? It's an opportunity, if he brings it to you, to go back to that person and go, you know what? I don't think I honored that. Where is that situation today? And how, is there anything that I can do? Right? People in our world needs it. Can I get an amen? Our world needs us to honor our vows and honor our vows. And I'm going to go there right now, because honoring our vows, Isaiah proclaims the same thing that Nahum proclaims, the same thing that Paul reiterates in Romans chapter 10, verse 17. And it is Isaiah 52, verse 7. How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him who brings good news, who proclaims peace, who brings glad tidings of good things, who proclaims salvation, and who says to Zion, your God reigns. Right there, right? And Nahum says the same thing, only he says, so keep your vows, keep your feasts, Judah. Keep them. It all correlates to doing those things. So the good news, the what is the gospel? Isaiah is telling us what the gospel is right here, right? It's
Not a New
something
Testament
new and something
concept.
different. The gospel has been the same from the beginning. He made a way for salvation. He made the way. I can't make the way myself, but I
And I
can
want to
choose his
I want
kingdom.
to I want to insert a practical application here. So in verse 11, to just kind of follow where you were at,
Yeah.
turn aside, come out from there, touch not the unclean, come out of her midst, be clean, you who bear the vessel of Yahovah.
Yeah.
And you know, one of the things that I wrestled with this week, and I had conversations with several women who have had similar issues, and I think Marsha and I talked about it, I don't know, maybe yesterday, but you know, a practical application for this is, we're just, you know, talking about biblical concepts. One thing that really comes to mind in this Torah portion for me is, you know, we're in the world, and sometimes we wrestle with like where we belong or how we should engage, because we're told to cleanse ourselves and not let our ears hear things, not let our eyes see things. Like, we're trying to purify, and a huge part of that is the people that you keep company with. And we know from other Torah portions, we're told not everyone needs a seat at your table. Sometimes people need to be placed outside the camp. But to me, this is also a season where I reflect on, okay, how do I distinguish or determine where I am to be? Because we know that light has to penetrate the darkness for there to be light in that space. Right. And so there is always a time for us to insert ourselves in dark places where we need to be a light because people need a witness. But there are also times when we are being called out of those dark places because the Father doesn't want us there, because we tend to compromise. Or I'm going to say, we're surrounded by the green trees. Yeah. We're led into idolatry. We don't represent him well. And maybe it's just our ability to kind of control ourselves around certain people. But I know in the last 3 years, I have had to pull away and out of things that were at one time very important to me with people that I really loved. But because of the dynamic of the situation, I had to really pray about it and ask the Father, is this a place where I should be removed? But I guess I want to bring it up because I feel like this Torah portion touches on this, because in the, not the Haftarah, but in the portion, it very much talks about cleansing. Well, it talks about it here too, right? Turn aside, come out from there. Do not touch the unclean. Come out of her midst if you're bearing the vessel of Yahovah. So, like, how do we interpret that for today? And are we taking time to contemplate things in our life that maybe we're choosing to keep a foothold in? Yeah. And it's a spot we no longer belong because we belong to him, and it's not allowing us to be truly set apart. Yeah. So as we're self-reflecting right now, we're being introspective. I just wanted to bring that up because I think as some of us transition, some of those things are the hardest to look at. Do I still belong there? Do I belong here? I shared this story, I think last year around this time, that I was, and I'm not saying this is for you, I'm saying that Father said this for me. So anyone listening, if you're in a group like this, I'm not like calling you a sinner or telling you to get out of it. But I was very deeply engaged in Rotary Club. And I thought, man, they do really great things. Like, you know, we raise tons of money and we build schools for children and we, you know, do all of this great stuff. And it feels on the inside like it was a wonderful thing to be involved in. Like, how could the Father not be 100% pleased? Because it was just, you know, so great. And I remember the day I felt him say, leave. And I was like, dude, I got like 10 years invested and I am up to be the foundation president of the Lansing Club. You can't expect after all that work to me to bow out now. Like, I'm at the pinnacle. Like, this is what people want to reach this point, and I'm going to leave. And I denied it, and I denied it, and I denied it. I accepted the nomination to be the chair elect, You remember the story, right, Robin?
I do.
And there was a day when he hit me so hard in the heart.
Yeah.
Like, delayed obedience is disobedience. I have told you.
Right.
And I was crying over it because I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
But I sent a letter of resignation. I sat at my desk crying. I called my friend Rhonda, who was the one who led me into Torah, and I was telling her about it. And she's like, he will show you why. You just needed to obey. He doesn't have to give you all the reasons before you do it. He wants you to be distinctly set apart. And afterwards, it was very clear to me after I had kept praying about it and be like, okay, I did it. You know, did I do the right thing? Is that really what you wanted? And it was basically, you think they're honoring me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me, because they worshiped multiple gods. We gave an invocation at the beginning of every meeting, and anyone could pray to their God. And I was sitting there taking that in, listening, being in a room of people who believed that you could pray to any God for an invocation.
Right.
And now I look at this Torah portion, and this is what I see. He says, all of your idolatry, cast it out, no God. There is no polytheism. There is no room in my house for polytheism.
Right.
I am one God, and I admit, you worship me. And I think he starts this Torah portion with that. You worship me only. And now I can look back and I can see why. It doesn't matter that it was good. It was good in whose eyes? He was not getting the glory for any of that money, any of that raising. All those other gods were getting the glory.
Right.
So I just want to encourage that. I know it's a long story. And again, if you're in Rotary or some other club, I'm not saying don't do it like you're a heathen or anything. That was where I was at, and that's what he told me. And so now I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, best decision I ever made. But sometimes we have a hard time separating. We don't want to always be set apart. Sometimes we want to look like everybody else and act like everybody else. And
I got my thing going. I just want to,
we just can't.
Yeah. And I tell you, it's just that his things are so much better. His things are so much better. All the things that I've ever thought that I've always wanted. What I always wanted, because I'm made in his image, was this.
This is Rhea though, and I wish I had my notes. I don't have my notes, but I listened to a teaching for Rhea that talked about 3 levels of basically maturity. And the first level is, oh, I read it kind of makes sense. I should probably do it,
Yeah.
The second level is you start to have a deeper level of understanding, but it's just like head knowledge, and you might still do it, but you're also kind of willing to compromise, but you understand the benefits, but you're really just not fully committed.
Yeah.
This third level, the seeing with spiritual eyes, that is the meaning of Re'ah, is that all of a sudden it penetrates you in a way where that verse that people misinterpret, he will give you the desires of your heart. He's not going to give you what you want. He's going to put his desires in you. I'm going to put my Torah, I'm going to put my law, I'm going to write it in your heart, and I'm going to cause you to do it. That is Re'ah. That is the spiritual transformation that says all of a sudden things don't look good. And ladies, here's the thing. It doesn't even matter where you're at, because it's a process. So if you're brand new and you still feel like I still have one foot in things. He's convicting me of something very strongly right now that I need to get out of, that I've been doing for, again, almost a decade. And it's like, I just don't want you doing it. And I'm like, okay, so I'm wrestling with it again. But as long as we're saying, Father, show me, where is it you want me to be? And what is it you want me to do? And for some people, it might be, well, I don't have fellowship, so what am I supposed to do? Cut it on my friends and family, or something like that. But I'm not saying that. And sometimes we need to be a light inserted into a dark place. Sometimes that's appropriate. My point is, ask him,
and definitely don't Satan, the enemy, is, the one who wants to, he's the one that wants to isolate, right? So don't allow that to take place. But let your light shine, right? Because when we put his glory on display for others to see, at first they might be confused. They genuinely are confused for a whole lot of reasons. But eventually they go, you're a better version of the same person I've always known. And that causes them to go, okay, I think I can.
Unless we're a Torah terrorist, don't do it.
Don't do that. No, but they can't possibly say you're a better person than the person I've always known. If
We've
unless,
all done it, people, but I'm just saying, get over it,
yeah,
move on.
don't,
You're doing it right now.
yeah, don't do it. You know, because let's go back to our Torah portion, right? Like, so we set up these judges, right? We set up all these things, and we set up 3 cities for, you know, holding patterns. You got to wait your court date, and you're guilty, not guilty, and we got to execute justice. But you also have the 3 cities for innocent, right? Like innocent mishaps, murder, manslaughter, whatever. And the thing about it is I was really reminded that, you know, Yeshua tells the disciples, everyone that you forgive will be forgiven, and every sin that you withhold will not be forgiven. That is such a weighty thing. If I was a disciple, I'd be like, oh, that's pretty heavy. I don't think I want to be tasked with that, but he tasks us with it. And so, and then he flips it and he's like, and oh, by the way, you know, the measure by which you forgive others, you will in turn be forgiven. So this delicate balance of walking in truth, but holding others harmless because they don't know. Stephen the martyr. I love using Stephen the martyr as an example, a perfect example in his death as Messiah, which was forgive them, they don't know what they're doing. If they had eyes to see, they wouldn't be doing this. And that needs to be my heart. So just
see, that's a control thing too. Yeah. We want to be able to rip the scales off people's eyes ourselves, and we can't do that. It's not our job. We don't get to get the glory for that.
Right, exactly.
We shouldn't want it, quite honestly. We shouldn't want that glory. That belongs to him.
It belongs to him. And our job is just to put his glory on display, not take it for ourselves. And so, you know, we want to put it on display by being excited about the refinement that comes. I've heard it from Halisa, and I heard it from one of the rabbis on Torah.org, and I read too much. I have no idea where I found the article, so can't point back to any specific, like, oh, it was right here on this episode. But, you know, the way that you prepared yourself last Elul, for the fall feast, the way you prepared yourself for Rosh Hashanah, Feast of Trumpets, Yom Torah, that planted a seed that grew over the last year. And so what you allowed to be planted and to grow will now take deeper roots this next year. You need to water that and keep going, because it just grows. It's like that mustard seed, and it just is going to take over your whole garden in a good way, right? It's going to be the thing that this is everything I always thought I never knew I always wanted, right? This is what I never really thought that this in my faith walk, my journey, my relationship to the Father and to Yeshua, like, I never thought that this kind of intimacy was really possible. I'd not even really seen it, even in lives of other people that I know they have a close walk. They did, but they had some things that were still missing, and they still hungered and they still thirsted for more. And not that I have all that I can possibly contain, because I'm like, you know, Jen said, when we start looking at these Torah portions, like, oh, I want it all. Just keep going. I want more.
Never feels like enough.
So much. We can only contain so much, but how much space can you make? And that goes back to that Isaiah, our Haftarah, where you were reading, Jen, where it's like, come out from among them and be separate. Don't touch the unclean thing. Why? Because when you do that, you make space in this vessel for his glory and for him. And when you let him fill that up, the other things, you won't want to be there. They won't have room. So it's okay. It's okay if you can't give them up yet, because I've been there.
So Rebecca used a word last week that I loved in the Torah portion. She said, I'm trying to think of what the phrase was. And Rebecca, if you're watching this, I apologize if I messed this up, but the word she used was satiated. So I might blow the context out, but she's like, we want to be satiated with what the Father gives, with his word. Like his word is going to satiate us. So it is going to make us full, that nothing else is going to look or be desirable, that we can, you know, like, okay, I could love, and I do absolutely love everything and anything chocolate. Okay. I mean, you name it. I do brownie, chocolate cake, chocolate ice, doesn't matter. Chocolate candy bar, anything. Love chocolate. But if I was truly full and I just had a big meal and someone put a piece of chocolate cake in front of me, I'd be like, oh, I can't eat that. I am too full. And that's exactly the attitude and the heart we want to have for Adonai in this, where we're like, Father, you fill us up. You give us everything we need. We are so satiated that there's nothing out there that even appeals to us.
Yeah.
And I want to quickly, I know we're almost out of time, but I want to go to Hosea 14 because it parallels super, super well to the Haftarah. So he says, O Israel, return to Yahovah your Elohim, for you have stumbled by your crookedness. Take words with you and return to Yahovah and say to him, take away all crookedness and accept what is good, and we render the bulls of our lips.
That's right.
Asher does not save us, and we do not ride on horses, nor do we ever again say by the work of our own hands, our mighty ones. For the fatherless finds compassion in you. I shall, Yah says, I shall heal their backsliding. I shall love them spontaneous, for my displeasure has turned away from them. I shall be like the dew to Israel. He shall blossom like a lily and strike out the roots of Lebanon. His branches are spread, and his splendor shall be like an olive tree, his fragrance like Lebanon. Those who dwell under the shadow shall return, and they shall revive like grain and blossom like the vine and become like as fragrant as the wine of Lebanon. I mean, and then the last verse is, who is wise and understands these words, discerning and knows them, for the way of Yahovah is straight and the righteousness will walk in them, but the transgressors will stumble. Right. I mean, isn't that just so beautiful? This is it. This is like, King is in the field, and we're taking the season. This is the season of repentance, and we're going to get to Sukkot. And if you have never celebrated Sukkot, it's the most, to me, it's my favorite feast. It's so beautiful because it is just the epitome of what it's going to be like when we are at that marriage supper and we rejoice and we're with our Savior forever and ever and ever. And but we've got to get there. The one who endures till the end shall be saved. We still have to, we're still teshuvah, and we're still working on ourselves, and we're still learning and growing, and we're being refined by the fire, and he is stretching us. And I know Marsha's on band right now. She's not on here, but we're in the straits, Marsha. We're being smushed, right? Marsha says it all the time. We've entered the straits. We're being smushed. We're getting ready for the fall feast season. And we didn't get through this, but I wanted to get through this other one. I wanted to go through Rabbi Foreman real quick. So right before we got on, I was listening to a teaching from Rabbi Foreman, and I just wanted to quickly share this Aleph Beta teaching. So in Deuteronomy, what chapter was that, Robin? Is it 19?
20. I think it was 20.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah, 20. Okay, so in Deuteronomy 20, we see something really interesting. He's talking about, and Marsha, you're going to like this. When you go out against your enemies in battle, so these people are getting ready for battle. He says, do not let your heart be faint, do not fear, do not tremble, do not be afraid before your enemies. For Yahovah your Elohim, it is he who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies to save you. So this is the wilderness. This is like the season where we are just in the wilderness. Our enemies are coming at us, but we're told, do not fear, because we have the power of the living God within us. And he says, and the officers shall speak to the people, saying, who is the man who has a new house and has not dedicated? Let him go home and return to his house. Who is the man who has planted a vineyard but hasn't used it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in battle and another man will use it. And who is the man who is engaged to a woman and has not taken her? Let him go home and not go into battle. So Robin and I had two different theories on this, and I think they can both be right. I think it can be yes and, because we know that there's a ton of layers of context in scripture. But in Rabbi Foreman's teaching, and he's Aleph Beta, and if you don't know him, he is supported by the Rooted Cafe, but he is not messianic. But he still has some very, very good teachings. And anyway, so he kind of brought out, like, you look at this, oh, I'm sorry. And then the fourth one is there's someone who's afraid and tender of heart, and he needs to go home too. But Rabbi Foreman points out that there's like a difference. You've got this man who's afraid, but these other three have something really specific in common. And what is it? What is it that they have in common? And of course, the Bible is perfect, unflawed. It's timeless. There's just so much in it that makes your head want to explode. And he talks about sometimes there are instances of this private imperative that people are removed from a situation or whatever because they are about to enter a circumstance where their life would have its purpose and meaning fulfilled, right? So what are we basically living for? What is our God-given purpose? He states, and I'm somewhat paraphrasing, that they're on the cusp of achievement and they are allowed to go and finish what they started, so that death is no longer something to fear, because they can say, well, now I've left a legacy, or I've completed what I've come to do. And there's this interesting theory that he brings out, and I'm kind of paraphrasing his theory a little bit, because again, he's not messianic that we know of. And so, but one of the things he talked about is, what are the three things? One is a new house, one is a vineyard, and the other one is a woman. So if we go back, and he parallels all of these to the creation story, that God gives this home, this garden, this land, and he gives a vineyard. So he gives fruit and trees and the grasses and all of that. And then he gives Adam Eve. And so it's this idea that he provides a place for us to build a home, produce fruit, and have relationship. I'm very paraphrasing that. I'm not even going to say he said that, because he didn't actually say that. But my understanding from that was that he parallels it to creation, but leaves it very generic. And I'm saying, when I look at that, I'm like, this is our life story. This is our purpose in Yeshua. This is our purpose in Yeshua. He's not saying that. I'm saying that because it's like, we are to establish our house.
Yeah. Right.
Our vessel, right? We are to establish our house. We are to tend to our vineyard. We are to produce fruit.
That's
and
right.
oil and all the things that represent his name. And then obviously relationships. Now he specifically related, like, and what scriptures specifically relate that it's a woman, let him go home and let them bond. I'm kind of saying, could that be family? Could that be marriages? Could that be whatever? But this is our purpose. Our purpose is to build a home, produce the fruit, develop relationships, draw people to the Father. Yes. So why, Rabbi Foreman says, well, then why is this one different? Why did the one who is tenderhearted not come? And I told Robin, he didn't relate it to this, but I went back to the spies.
Yes.
The 10 spies. It's like, nobody needs a bad report. Nobody needs to be going to battle crying and fearful, because everyone else is going to be crying and fearful. And what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to separate from those kinds of people. We're supposed to walk in confidence.
Strong and courageous. Do not
strong
turn
and
to the
courageous.
left hand or to the right, right?
You can't have those fearmongers in your camp. Those need to be outside the camp. So anyway, I just wanted to share that because I thought it was absolutely beautiful. And I literally learned it 30 minutes ago. So I'm not saying I've had a lot of time to study it, but you can go check it out on Aleph Beta. It's on YouTube. So do you want to talk about your theory on that? Because your theory was very good too, before we go.
No, I think I love that. I love that because it fits with everything else, you know? I think it just ties that up so nicely. I hadn't considered it. I hadn't listened to Aleph Beta, and I love that picture. It's consistent. That's the other thing that I really love. I love the consistency of the story from the beginning all the way to the end, and how everything in the middle, line upon line, precept upon precept, it's all right there. It works beautifully, cohesively together. It's not contradictory. It doesn't do that. If you understand it, it's going to paint this, it's the picture is just going to get bigger, right? And it's just more
Did you
detailed.
see Erica's comment?
Oh, so
Okay,
many
so Erica,
beautiful
this is a
layers.
phenomenal comment. It's a whole nother layer. So she said another teacher and his wife talk about those requirements, and the first three are Yeshua preparing a place, taking the harvest, and about to meet his
The bride.
bride.
Yes.
I mean, seriously, people, humans couldn't write it. We're not smart enough.
We're not.
We're not smart
Yeah.
enough. We're not deep enough. It's
Right.
amazing.
Right.
It's so good.
Right.
I didn't
We
even
would
get through
just,
half the stuff I had, but I know we're just about out of time. But what do you want to give for a finisher? You got anything else that you want to end with, or you want to close it up, or?
yeah, what did I'm trying to remember what oh, now I'm not going to get this right because it just came back into my brain, but I've been like pondering it. Monty Judah. I don't know if anybody in here knows Monty Judah. He had Lion and Lamb Ministries, or he has Lion and Lamb Ministries. He's done
I've
online.
listened to him, but not a lot.
I don't really listen to him a lot, but I came across one of his clips as I was, scrolling through social media. And oh my goodness, he was talking to an Orthodox rabbi about Moses. And Moses had, he had the staff, and he had, I'm going to mess this all up anyhow, but he pictured the three things that Moses did. And he was like, Yeshua had those same things. And he just and everything tied back to the Exodus moment. And so the rabbi was like, nobody's ever pointed that out to me before. And I was like, nobody's ever pointed it out to me either. So, it was like, it wasn't new to me, but I was like, oh, he did. Oh, he did. And then you're like, oh, he did, and it's not different, right? It's a repeat. It's to happen again. It's to unfold. I think I've heard multiple times from different people, the revelation is progressive. And we see that with Abraham. The revelation was progressive, and it will be with you and me too. And it is perfectly okay, because God made the way a long time ago. Reality. He made the way a long time ago, and he sits there as the only one who can judge, because he judges rightly. So no fear. I think that was the biggest thing, right? Like one of my takeaways from when you said that earlier was no fear. And maybe it was also what Charlie was talking about, between Pharaoh and this new taskmaster, right? This new king who had his own set of rules, and it was a kingdom of shalom, and not a kingdom of building your own empire, but a kingdom of building his. And in that one, you have no fear. So don't be afraid to come before him, and go.
Don't be afraid in this season of crazy.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's kind of crazy, but just trust the story. It's a trustworthy story, because it's a trustworthy Elohim. So that's what I've got.
All right, we do have to wrap it up. I can stay about 10 minutes for an after party, but I don't have a lot of time. But if any of you want to hang out for an after party, and if you have prayer requests or anything like that, if you're on band, you can jump on over. And Marcia, I see that Jennifer got on with an email link. I'm going to send you the email link to see if you can jump on here from band.
You can't. So band cut off our feed. I think it's on a timer. And so she actually isn't on there any longer.
Well, I'm gonna stop recording.